Welcome to Living in the Ozarks, celebrating the people, businesses, and culture that make the Ozarks great.
There's no bad equipment anymore. You know,
Really, there's not. I mean,
you can't buy bad guitar. When I was a kid, you buy there were cheap guitars like that one right there behind you.
yeah.
There were guitars like that. That's really a little later. That's kind of by 1970. But in the early 60s, when I started playing, it's like you had good guitars, and those you had to pull forward a little bit. People get scared and fall off that. The strings be this high off the fretboard, and you couldn't play. Little kids got these cheap guitars.
Oh yeah. You have to really push hard, and you can't hardly do that.
Yeah, and you can't just learn it. And then they finally figured out that you can make a guitar playable just as cheap as you can, unplayable.
Right.
So now you can't buy a bad guitar.
Yeah. So is this just fun for you? What you're doing there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I make up songs all the time just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're funny songs.
How many do you think you do in a time, like a week or a day?
Oh, there was a couple, jingle-wise, those are 30 seconds long. And just, from about 1998 till about 20 some years, I would go to TV stations about every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy named Rich who traveled with me. And we'd go to TV stations coast to coast, just everywhere. And the station would set 7 appointments a day. And I wouldn't know who they were until they walked in the door. I didn't want to know. It's too scary.
Yeah.
And so they'd walk in, and it would be in Duluth, and be a hardware store would come in, our name is so-and-so.
For a commercial.
Oh, yeah. Because the TV stations, they want to sell time.
Yeah.
But once they sell the time, get the contract, what are we going to do with it now? Let's take a picture of the store and them shaking hands. Anyway,
Yeah.
and they do that. We did that yesterday. We're doing it tomorrow. Anyway, so if they get a jingle, at least that gives them kind of a drawing board to put stuff on.
Yeah.
And when they see the commercials, they're going to remember the jingle, but they're not going to remember any of the video shots.
Yeah.
It's like, the State Farm jingle, or lots of jingles out there, but you can't tell me what the video was on the last one you saw.
Yeah.
So it's a memory thing.
Sure, I get that.
And the dirty secret about the jingle business is that bad jingles work just as good as good jingles.
Yeah. It's funny.
The ones you...
Sometimes it's the simple stuff, huh?
Oh, yeah. It's just, I always wanted to do something really bad.
And when you say bad, do you mean like off key or?
Oh, yeah. Musically bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's musically bad things out there. I won't name any names, but and most of the stuff I do goes out of town, so I never hear it again anyway.
Yeah.
And I like like doing music, so I want to make it as good as I can.
Sure.
And but then I hear jingles and I think, they sold that, but I realized I found myself singing that jingle as much as I did good jingles. So.
Let me just make sure we're good on the spacing. Yeah.
Am I still okay?
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't cutting me off or you off either one. So.
And so I started doing jingles in college, just because.
Now, are you from the Ozarks?
From El Dorado Springs. It's about an hour northwest of here.
Yeah.
And but I remember being a little kid, and my mom, I saw a cereal box, and they said, make up a jingle for Rice Krispies or Quaker Oats or something,
Yeah.
And I said, and it had a picture of a money bag. It had the money swing, I said, and it had this other stuff, a boat and the stuff, And I wanted the boat, And Mom said, no, you want that bag. I said, what's that bag? I said, that's the big prize. That's money. Oh, okay. I didn't know what that even symbol meant, And my mom said, you ought to try it. I bet you could make jingles up. I thought, well, it was just a little bit of encouragement,
Yeah.
And so I sat around and tried to make up something. Didn't come up with anything, But I always remember that. And then,
and you were how old?
Probably 6 or 8.
Yeah.
So, 6 or 7, something like that.
Sure.
And then, I started playing music when I was about 10 or 11, And
What'd you play first?
ukulele. I always tell everybody start on ukulele.
Yeah.
Because it's just got 4 strings.
Yeah.
It's immediate gratification. In in a couple of days, you can be playing on top of Old Smoky or whatever, And I mean, you can play all the song. You can play all the chords that Hank Williams ever knew or Elvis ever knew. You can't. But I mean, just most good songs are 3-chord songs. Most of the classic stuff is,
right.
and that's all you need. If you can play ukulele, you used to be stuck on one key, but anyway. So and it's easy and they don't hurt your fingers, and so I always tell our kids all the time, start on a ukulele.
Yeah.
And can I walk off screen a second?
Oh yeah, you do whatever you need.
I'll show you a little demonstration.
Yeah, you're fine.
Where is it?
It's still catching you. I mean, capturing you to some degree, and that's okay if not.
I'm looking for him. It's laying right here. Well, I can't do my demonstration then. But I still got my first ukulele. I mean, it was just laying right here a couple days ago. Somebody probably stole it after all these years. No, it's here somewhere, but there's just too many things in here.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like I got it for $4. I got it for my birthday, and and I wanted to play guitar, and they said, my parents, you'll just quit, I mean, I'd never gone through that where you get a trumpet and then you don't want to quit band right away,
Right.
And so I thought, well, maybe I will. I don't know. But my granddad knew I wanted to play guitar, so he said, "We'll get you a ukulele." They were $4, and just off of a catalog,
Mm-hmm.
And so he got me this ukulele. It was $4, and I learned to play it. And April was my birthday, so
When in April?
April 29th.
Nice. My son's is the 23rd of April.
Oh,
so
yeah. But anyway, so I got where I could play.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the summer, we'd always come to Springfield to get our school clothes, from El Dorado, and there were doctor's appointments. So we went to a music store, and I looked at guitars, and I said, well, you've been playing ukulele pretty good. Okay, we'll get your guitar. So they got me a guitar, and it's in the back there too. But so I started playing guitar, and then I got a better guitar, but I just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah.
But I was new. I mean, my dad never said the word musician without the word queer in front of it. He's a queer man. He'd see the Beatles on TV. I bet you queer musicians. So anytime he said the word musician about anybody, it was always queer musician.
Yeah.
And so, and he said, and there was, we had a nice house in El Dorado Springs, but a couple of doors down, there was a couple of shacks, in a small town. It's all mixed up. And there was a guy there. I remember, I got to know him later, but I remember he was probably early 20s, and he played in a band over at Osceola nightclub over there, like at night, and he had a really good looking wife sitting on the front porch all the time, like on these steps, and had a couple little kids running around, and in the yard, just a crappy place. And Dad said, "You stick with that music. That's gonna be you when you grow up,
And you thought,
We got the good-looking wife, but it's poverty, And one of those little kids I know really good now. She's 50 or 60 or something.
Sure.
But and I got to know him later. He ended up playing in Branson back, when I was in my 30s, and he was probably in his 40s.
Yeah.
So I knew him a little bit. But anyway, so I was always discouraged from going into music, and I always saw it as a dead-end job,
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'll just play music while I'm in school. And I played sports and stuff too. And I worked at my dad's grocery store. And so I stayed busy. I wasn't really, didn't study a lot. I was 66th out of my class of 104. So I just barely missed that top third. I'd be pretty proud if I got that top third.
Yeah.
I didn't make it. But anyway, so, and they always said, Nick, you're going to flunk out of college. You don't apply yourself, you're just going to go to college and flunk out in my first month. So I was scared of that kind of failure too. So I went to SMS, and you know, I did real good my first year. I got like a 4.0 my first semester, 3.9 something my second semester.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, anyway, by the time I kept playing music. And by the time I got to school, I just barely graduated with my 2.5 in my major. But I asked him, I said, okay, what's the easiest major you've got here? I knew I was going to go into business.
you literally said that to the counselor?
Oh, yeah, to the business
or whoever
people.
it was, yeah.
Uh-huh. And I said, I want to go into business, but I don't really want to do accounting, I don't think, and I don't want to do... I said, I don't want to be in business. I don't want to... I also paint and do art. I said, but I don't want to do art. I don't want to do music in school, and I don't want to do law or medicine or whatever, you know. And this is where I had all these communication degrees that I don't know what those even are, you know.
Yeah.
So I said, what's the easiest major you got? And they said, marketing. Put me on a marketing major. So I went to, you know, school as a marketing degree. And about my sophomore year in college, I met a guy named Mike Bride. And there was a recording studio, which Cy Simon had built this recording studio in 1969 at 1762.
What's the name?
Well, it's not there anymore. It's where there's a State Farm agent. Is it Berlin Heffley? I think it's Berlin Heffley's. Yeah, almost to Glenstone. Just like there's a gas station at Elm and Glenstone on the northwest corner, and then, or used to be, I don't know. And then the next thing is an insurance office, a State Farm. Anyway, that was the first recording studio in Springfield. And this guy, Mike Bride, he worked there. You know, he played guitar and stuff there. And I used to play it. He just had a guitar out and playing in the grass at SMS like you did in college.
Yeah.
And he played, and he was real good. And he said, you ought to come watch the recording sessions over there, recording studio. And I knew there was a studio somewhere in Springfield. And I thought, yeah, I want to come watch. So I'd go there on Saturdays for a little while and watch him. And they'd have a regular rhythm section in there, bass, drums, piano, guitar, and then a singer or a group of singers, or sometimes they have a bunch of the Springfield Symphony in there, and they record violins and brass. And I thought, I could do that. And so musicians were making, the players were making $6 an hour at the time, which in 1972 was good wages.
Yeah.
You know, I was making like $2, you know.
I wasn't born until 74, so
Oh, really?
a couple of years before me.
Yeah. And so I went to the studio guy and I said, you know, Mike, he's playing lead, and then you guys have to stop the whole session. He has to overdub his acoustic guitar, the acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
I said, I'll do it for $4 an hour, and I'll just play acoustic guitar. And you know, they said, and then so they had me play some stuff. And they said, okay. So that was about 72, winter 72, 73, and got to know these guys, and they were all like 10, 15 years older than me. So they were like mid-30s.
Yeah.
And I would just play rhythm guitar, but I learned a lot about the rhythm guitar stays right with the hi-hat on the drums. You stay right with that. You know, that's your job, to stay right with that. And rhythmically, and you know, but it was really fun because but then they would do like a gospel album on, it was mainly gospel music. That's what most of it was. And it was all, they do an album on Saturday, an album on Sunday. Next weekend, album on Saturday, album on Sunday. You know, and they would come in and you just sight read the stuff, and the singers would, you know, sing, and you'd have an album done by the end of the day. So,
I was never very good at reading music.
Oh, do you play?
I played bass guitar in a band for a while. Yeah.
Well, Dave Pease was the bass player there forever, and he passed away about 10 years ago, I think, something like that, maybe longer now. But he was real good. He was a colorful character. All the people were really fun to play with, and but I noticed like almost all the players. I mean, I was making what, $40 a day? They were making $60 a day, you know, and they all had night jobs playing in clubs and stuff.
Sure.
And I was starting to play at night then too, and we were making, I don't know, $60 a night playing, and so when I was a junior and senior in college, it was pretty good living for a college kid,
Yeah.
and just kept playing, and there's sometimes they'd get these group vocals in and strings and stuff from Evangel or CBC or BBC,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd sing stuff, and we'd finish it and it sounded really good, and I think that sounds like American Airlines TV ads. I now thought, I bet I could write that stuff, and if I could hire the studio, they were $50 an hour for the studio then,
Yeah.
and hire these singers, get these guys. And then I went to the radio station. I said, what do they get for a jingle, And they said, oh, you can't do them here. You got to do them in Chicago or Memphis or Dallas. That's where those jingles are done. You can't do them here. And I said, no, I think we could. I think I can make them up. And I think so. And everywhere I went, they were just real discouraging. No, it can't be done right here. And I said, well, anyway. So one night I was playing at a pizza place, Shakey's Pizza Place. There on Glenstone, became the Pink Cadillac, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back then it was Shakey's Pizza. And Noble and Associates, it used to be a huge ad agency here in town for a long time.
Yeah.
But they were just kind of started. There were about 4 or 5 people working there then. There were a few hundred people working there. But there were just 4 or 5 people there working there. There was Bob and Terry Fisher and I don't know. Jim Eggers, I think, was the art guy. But anyway, just a handful of guys. And they were downtown the square. And Terry, I'd played some stupid songs, just comedy songs or something at the pizza place.
Yeah.
And he sent my card up to me and said, did you ever think about writing jingles? I said, I've been trying to get somebody to let me do that.
Yeah.
And so come to my office Monday morning. So he came to, I went to his office, and he just start with really basic stuff. It's like, okay, when you're writing a jingle for a company, you want to say good stuff about them. Okay, I knew that. They're 30 seconds long, and sometimes we'll have 60 seconds, and it was for 15s. They were like, 30 basically. And he gave me 5 jingles to write. They were clients that they were trying to get.
Yeah.
They were trying to get Reliable Chevrolet, and they put out, back then, somebody like that would put out a deal calling for agencies. And we'll take 4 or 5 people, agencies, come present to us, and then present your ideas, kind of like on Bewitched, Larry, you ever see Larry Tate, kind of like that. And so Noble was trying to get in with some new customers. They were competing against other agencies. And so I went home and made up jingles for each one of these,
Yeah.
and just me and a guitar. And I go, well, those are pretty good, So they presented them, and they would get the accounts then, because they had a jingle. Everybody else would just show up with drawing boards or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, scripts or radio pads will be like this, or something. But they wouldn't have a jingle, So it was just a good selling tool for the agency.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Noble get these accounts, and I said, okay, go produce these now. So then I had to go hire singers and the guys that I knew. And, I think the first jingle I did was probably, I think it was Tap Jack Home Centers. And it was just a group of hardware stores, mainly in Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, around here.
Yeah.
And Tap Jack Home Centers, Tap Jack to add a hammer. Tap Jack Home Centers for help around your home. And just that little trick like a Tap Jack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I got $600 for it. And it cost me $300 to hire my friends to do it. And I got to hear it on the radio. It was pretty weird,
Yeah.
I'm in the jingle business. And there were several others we did. We did for, there was a product called Froyo, frozen yogurt back then, that Highland made it here locally.
Yeah.
Yeah, jingle for them. A chicken restaurant over in Kansas called Chicken Mary's. I can't. Oh, Guarantee Federal. And I can still remember these jingles. You know, I remember how they went. And and then other agencies found out Noble was producing jingles around here, and so they just started calling me, and they'd had these presentations where Meeks or whoever is putting out feelers for agencies, and I'd have 2 or 3 agencies call me. We need a jingle for Meeks or whoever, you know, and so I'd write one for this agency, and then some other young company calls. We need a jingle for so-and-so. So I'd write the other Meeks jingle for them. And so I'd have like 3 jingles being presented to Meeks, you know. And none of them really knew that I was doing them all, but because I have to write different every time.
Now wait, was that just, that's so funny. Was that, they would present them? Did you get paid prior to? You only got paid if they got the deal, but you had all 3, or at least 3 of them anyway.
Yeah, it's all spec.
Yeah.
And and then once I started doing, there were a couple other musicians in town that were started doing them too, but they didn't do near as many. But so that's how I started doing this stuff. But it was kind of rewarding. One thing, if you're in the radio biz or broadcast, it's kind of like being a high school football coach. You're going to get fired in 3 years no matter what happens. You know, you get fired.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the station manager at Rock 99, or KWTO back then.
Yeah, Rock 99.
Came
I
to
remember
me.
that.
He got fired, and he was one of the guys that told me there's no way to do jingles. Like 20 years later, he was saying, "Can I go sell jingles for you? Can I go work for you?" I don't need that. But anyway, it was just weird.
Yeah.
You know. But
yeah, Rock 99 was a great station. I loved it.
yeah, I remember when that came. Well, it came there when you were probably about 3 years old.
Probably
75, 70.
And it went and through, I think even through high school would have been probably 92 at least.
Yeah, and they'd always say, "I'm into you" by, and before that, they'd give you 2 little deals, you know.
Yeah.
And the guy who was the voice of that, John, my brain's gone, but he was in Dallas, and he was the head of TM Productions, Tom Merriman Productions, who was he was a Grammy-winning composer or something. He was an important guy. And I never met him, but his main guy was this guy who was like president of the company, but also did the voices for all these records. I don't know how he was the president of the company, but he still...
He probably just enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, it had the voice, you know. Right, you know, helping meet chicks or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
and but then they started. I mean, they did jingles. The jingles in Dallas and Chicago were the best. I mean, they had great players, great singers, great everything. You know, great studios, and so I always had to kind of carve out my own niche against what I was competing against. Because those guys would get so slick sometimes that they would, you know, how back in the rock and roll era, there would be the Beatles or whoever, you know, the Rolling Stones and all these people. But then the station IDs always sounded like they were from the 40s. WFM, you know, da-da-da. And these singers that they sound like Andrews Sisters or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And totally, they did that for a long time.
Yeah.
And like, if you listen to country music IDs now, they try to sound like the records at the time. They'll have just a girl or a country guy going, you know, KTTS, you know, and be But back then, those Chicago and Dallas people, they were doing all those station IDs. And so a lot of times their jingles were like too slick. They sounded like stuff from the 40s and 50s when music was good, you know? It wasn't just kids playing in their garage, you know?
Right.
So a lot of times, I just kind of kept that in mind when I was doing jingles. I mean, I have to get good singers, but I didn't ever try to attempt the real slick stuff. I mean, I did once in a while try, you know, but, and I hardly ever, I sing 1% of my jingles, you know?
Yeah.
But I always sing the demo, you know, like I'll do the demo, like you heard somebody do the demo and write it and then give it to the client. Okay, this is, this will sound like, you know, some pop version of some. This will be like, I know I can't think of any singers right now, but I have somebody in mind for it that I know I can pull off. I mean, if there's a good Rod Stewart impersonator at the Legend Show in Branson, I'll try to write something in Rod Stewart vein because I know I can pull it off with the singer. Because the client, only thing they know how to criticize is the singer. You know, once you get the words approved, you know, and they never complain about the guitar part or the bagpipes or all. They see all these TVs for the past 30 years,
Only
TV
for
shows.
The singer, huh?
Yeah, these like America's Got Talent, where they're sitting, you know, Simon Cowell.
Sure.
So everybody in the world thinks they're Simon Cowell. So they love criticizing the singer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so you got to kind of guard against that because it's like the worst thing you can hear from a client is, I don't like that guy singing. He sounds like a guy at my church that I don't like or something, you know. Well, he's in tune. The words are clear. And our client will think, we're making a hit record here. My daughter thinks it should sound like Taylor Swift, you know. She thinks, you know, they're selling boots or something, you know. It's like, you know, your daughter was at the meeting when you told me what to do. You know, you talk to the client, but then they take it home. And then their wife and daughter decide if
somebody likes it,
yeah. Then that's, or the employees that, you know, because everybody's got input, you know.
Yep.
And it makes them doubt, you know. They don't know the rule of bad jingles work just as good as good jingles.
Right.
You know, we're doing advertising here, you know. And but I want it to sound good too. I mean, if I'm doing something that sounds like Taylor Swift, I'd want it to sound like Taylor Swift. But you know, and every once in a while somebody will give you. That's one of the questions I always ask people. If you could have anybody sing your jingle that represents your business, who would you pick, dead or alive? You know.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you something, you know. But you know, sometimes they'll just tell you something they like. You know, oh, I love Johnny Cash. Well, Johnny Cash doesn't fit your business, though. I want to know what you like. I want something that fits with your company, you know. And but through all this, I saw really quick that whether I was playing at night in bands or playing at the studio, or playing in Branson, most all the musicians that I played with were pretty much like my dad said. You know? And they had to have a wife with a job.
Sure.
Or a wife with a car. Or a wife with or a girlfriend with an apartment. And I used to, you know, I'd be playing in the 70s or 80s, playing 6 nights a week somewhere. And I'd be making, you know, $500 a week. Which, you know, I can live on $500 a week. And I'd have 3 kids, and my wife taught school, but I realized that nobody's going to want to hear you play. I used to think nobody's going to want to hear me play after I'm 30, you know. That's the way it worked, you know. Just like all the bands were young players, and then they got families and grew up, and then they quit playing. You know, that's what I always saw. That's before the praise bands were everywhere. You know, church now they keep playing forever and I play at church now. Okay, you know.
Right.
So I play so I can play rock guitar with all my pedals and drums, you know. Anyway. But anyway, so
of course Mick Jagger's he's 82 or something.
Oh yeah. Well, that levels, they get to play a long time. If
now Rush is going to be going on tour again.
Yeah. But one of those rules is you got to stay skinny.
Yeah.
They ain't no fat Rolling Stones. You know,
for various reasons. Maybe.
Yeah, probably so. But no, that's one of the rules about, you know, music to me is that if you're gonna stay on top, you got to stay skinny.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any fat eagles or fat. You know, I don't think so. You know. But
what I see this morning.
Now, unless you're black.
Well, that may be true. Yeah.
Yeah, black people they can play. They can be fat. Women especially.
Ringo and Paul are
yeah.
duetting, I think, now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I don't think either one of them are fat.
No, I don't think so. I don't think
Overweight.
John Lennon wouldn't be fat if he was still alive. Neither would George.
Think about if anybody that I knew that I really enjoyed, I don't think it would matter to me.
Well, unless they're known for being fat, like Mama Cass. She's my favorite female singer of all time, you know.
Yeah.
But
now, what did she sing? I don't know.
She's the Mamas and Papas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All the leaves are brown.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
she
yeah.
was just a great.
Yeah.
I always
people like that though. I mean, they have such a unique voice. It doesn't matter for them. It's
no, and they in fact they didn't want her in the band at first in the Mamas and Papas. They were worried about her being such a big gal. Because Michelle was real pretty
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and but she finally talked them into getting them in the band. You know, so she was in the band and but I was like Adele. I met her. I don't know what she weighs, but I mean, as far as a singer, people always talk about good singers. Mama Cass kills Adele to me, and Mama Cass kills the gal that sang the Titanic song. I can't remember her name either.
Yeah.
She's huge. My brain's gone.
Celine
really.
Dion.
Celine Dion, yeah. She killed. I mean,
of course, she's skinny. So
yeah, but there's singers that, to me, when I hear a singer, I try to tell if they're singing to me or they really love the sound of their own voice. When I hear Neil Diamond or Barbra Streisand sing, I always think, man, they love the sound of their own voice.
I have to think about that because I'm like,
they love true? It's not. They're giving out. They're just saying, look at me, listen to me. I don't know. There's Joe Cocker. I love Joe Cocker, and I always felt like he was just singing to be singing. You know, he wasn't trying to impress other singers.
Sure, he was with all the passion in the world. He was singing.
Yeah, he's just great. You know, and it didn't matter if he's in tune or out of tune. Yeah, there's singers that transcend all the things that you look for in a singer, and that's the magic of it to me.
It is.
Because there's people like, there's perfect stuff that'll just bore you to death. And that's what music is today to me. It's all auto-tuned.
Where do you rank Van Morrison at?
I've never liked Van Morrison.
Really?
He's a god.
I got to see him. He was good.
There's people that love. I mean, he may be like hockey or stock car riding. You know, or they say if you go, you'll get it. You go, and I just never seen Van Morrison, but
it's great.
Van Morrison, to me, he wrote some good songs. I mean, he wrote some successful songs.
Yeah.
But I always call it, let me get a guitar.
Yeah.
Van Morrison always writes in a pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
And it's all. Not that note. Anyway, it's all, which is, most guitar solo guys are, they play in the pentatonic scale. And most sax players do too.
Yeah.
I mean, not except jazz guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, everything he writes is in a pentatonic scale. And that just bores me to death.
Yeah.
And that's all. That's my only complaint about him.
Yeah.
I
think there are musicians out there who are they're great for the general population, but then there are musicians out there who are musicians for other musicians.
Oh, that's the worst.
And so
my son is 22 and he's a really good musician.
Yeah. And
I tell him all the time, do not do music for other musicians. That's the kiss of death. Do not try to. One thing, you're never going to please them.
Yeah.
Because if you're really good, they're going to hate you. If you're not very good, they're still going to hate you. Yeah, don't do music for other musicians.
Yeah.
And I always think musicians have the worst taste in music. Because if you go to see a musician's record collection, there won't be anything there. It won't have Thriller in there. It won't have Sgt. Pepper. It won't have anything you've ever heard of. And I was related
Yeah,
to.
I think that's true.
I relate to. Yeah, they had the worst record collections.
All the B-roll stuff or B-side stuff.
Cool stuff that
like,
nobody
yeah.
else has that they, to impress other musicians,
That's true.
And I always notice that when I'm playing music, I can always pick the hairdressers out in the crowd because they've got the worst hair in the place. The same thing, musicians and their tastes, I think. But
Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah, interesting.
But what I noticed is I started buying real estate a long time ago, just because I knew there was no retirement in the music business, and so I've got a bunch of real estate, but too much. But what I've realized now is there's no retirement in the real estate business. So, like today, I'm just hauling trash, painting stuff, fixing stuff. It never ends. I guess it's just life, but
Yeah.
at least it's I can be rewarding, I guess,
Yeah, I think it's just like anything. I think there's always pros and cons to it, and
Yeah, I'm thinking, like I've got 3 daughters and my son's 22, and I don't know what the good jobs are now. You used to think, oh, I want to be an attorney. I want to be a doctor. I don't think those are good jobs anymore.
I think it's all relative to what you're looking for. I mean, to me, the thing that's most valuable to me is, does it provide you with a level of freedom that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise, and pay your bills?
Yeah, yeah.
That to me is pretty valuable.
Yeah.
Whereas having to hear other people, complain, or like a counselor or something, I don't know.
I could be a counselor. I could do that. All you got to do is listen. You got to listen to me talk, and then every once in a while say, "How did that make you feel?" That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
I had a counselor tell me one time, it's the easiest job in the world. Said, all you got to tell people is, don't screw around when you're married. That's all you got to do.
And how does that make you feel?
Yeah. But anyway.
So you started buying real estate. What do you have? Is it all single family? Is it?
I've got like a dozen single family
commercial
houses and half a dozen buildings downtown.
Yeah.
Which is not a lot, but more than enough for me.
Sure.
But
keeps you busy too.
Yeah. Yeah, they just you don't just give somebody a house and they pay you rent and live there. You are their daddy.
Yeah.
They've got a problem. That's your problem now. Their water pump goes out in their car. They can't pay their rent. Well, no, that's my problem. Great. My dog tore your carpet. I'm sorry. See you later. But anyway. So when I'm doing this, I don't want to go to real estate. And when I'm doing real estate, I don't want to come do this because I'm, So it's like 2 halves of my brain. And
which one do you enjoy more?
Well, I don't know, because it's nice to get a house done and know they're going to tear it up, but get a house done, and it's nice to work on a song or something that you like when you're done.
Yeah.
But it's no fun to work on something a long time and then you get done and you still don't like it. It's like, you ever paint a picture?
Yeah.
And then you paint a picture and then, am I done? Or how come I can see this picture in my head and I can't get it on paper? You know?
Or you just decide, let's just paint over it. And let's start over. So get a fresh.
Yeah. But I've got one daughter that's married to an artist in France.
Yeah.
And he stays real busy and she helps him. And now I've got another daughter that's an RN in Florida. And another daughter works for Heineken in Amsterdam. And so they're all far away. My daughters are.
Yeah.
And they're in their 40s, And they're all fine. They're, they like me and all that. A lot of people don't like they don't get along with their family, but I've been real lucky that way.
Yeah, that's good.
Except wives. I've got 2 ex-wives, but we get along too. And
there's always a trade-off somewhere.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. But
kind Kind of like, I guess it's like you were saying, 3 years and
What's that?
3 years and you're out.
Oh, no, not married. Married, you mean, or what?
Well, you were talking about...
The high school coaches, yeah. I was married 19 years once.
Okay, so you made it longer than 3.
Yeah, like 19 and 20. Now I'm on my 3rd marriage, and we're doing fine. We've been 3 years going now.
Yeah,
so.
Good.
And, but...
Well, it's good you have a good relationship with your children. So you've got 3 daughters and 1 son?
Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah.
And my son's, he's in music, and he's really good at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
When he plays cello, there's his cello out there.
Really? Okay, yeah.
And he plays keyboards and guitar and bass. And he plays bass for Lee Greenwood. That's his job, He got to, a couple days ago, he got to ride yesterday. Lee was in town doing something with Johnny Morris, and he called Captain yesterday and said, because Captain usually drives to Nashville, and they get on the bus and then they sleep, and they wake up in Minnesota or wherever they're going to be playing.
Yeah.
And they play, and they get back on sleep till they get back in Nashville. And do a few shows like that. But anyway, he, Mr. Greenwood called him yesterday and said, hey, you want to ride with me on Johnny Morris's private jet to Nashville instead of driving this time? Sure.
Yeah. Let me think about it for a second. Yeah.
So he got to do that yesterday, and he gets to do a lot of fun stuff. But when he was, it's like, when he was a kid, I tried to encourage him to play, bass, to learn something. And he did it for like 2 minutes. I want to do something else. I didn't think he'd be interested in music, but.
What's his favorite instrument? Or
I don't think I think he just likes music. I think he just likes putting stuff together, and he puts stuff together really good.
Yeah.
And he I don't know, he's just really good on a bunch of different stuff that I don't know where he gets it. His mom's a real good musician too. And so she's a violin player, piano player, and she can read stuff really good, and I can't read stuff.
Yeah.
But I can write stuff down, and I can't read it back. It's kind of, I always noticed that when I was hiring string players a lot, or brass players, I could write stuff down as fast as I could think. Like that, And then I put it in front of the violin players. And I'd say, okay, let's change that from da-da-da-da-da. Let's go da-da-da-da-da. We can't do that. But they can read it first time through, like reading a newspaper.
Yeah.
So, can't you just change it? They said, well, you wrote it out. Why can't you just read it back? I don't know. Just whatever you get used to doing, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
But Captain, he could play real good. And Tony Orlando, do you know Tony?
Sure.
I would play with him since Captain was about 4. And I would just, he had like a 5-piece band, and whenever one of them was sick or couldn't go somewhere, I'd go take their place in the band. So, it wasn't, 3 or 4 times a year I'd go somewhere. I got to go to China one time, and, but it was fun. You got to go a lot of different places, and Tony's always, he's the nicest guy in the world, And he, but I might go out as a bass player, and 6 months later go out and play keys. I just knew the songs and, play guitar on the next one. Those are and I wasn't as good as the people that were doing it in real life, but I could cover for them,
Right.
And then, but he Captain, Tony knew Captain, just being a little kid, being around, and he knew he could play. And he always told Captain, said, when you turn 18, you got a job. And never thought much about it, And on Captain's 18th birthday, Tony called him and said, learn the show. We're going to New York next week. And so he just got on the internet and watched his shows, and he never does the same show twice. It's not like most bands you play with, like we were playing the Daredevils, there's a song list in front of you. We're playing those songs, okay? or everybody is that way, except for Tony.
Yeah, that's.
He'll say, "Okay, we're going to start off with Tie Yellow Ribbon." Okay, and then he walk on the stage, and he'll start singing about in America, the Neil Diamond song, and then he'll just go from he just go from whatever he wants to do.
Let's just ad lib and go.
Oh yeah, and he just talks. And I grew up in New York City, and when he starts talking that, we got to get up on the roof. That means he goes to up on
little
the
cues.
roof. Yeah. Oh, that's up on the roof. Okay, so the bass starts. So, so Captain went, and Tony was a little nervous about it, and he said, "Let's get together and practice once first." And so we met here, and it was Tony and Carrie, who's the band leader, and me and Captain all sat out there. And I was just watching. I wouldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, he goes, "I've been away, I done my time. Now I've got to know what is and isn't mine." Anyway, that's the way Tony always starts it off. Well, he said, "Let's just do it like the record." And the record goes,
yeah.
And so Carrie, the band leader, he had been used to playing with her, "I've been away, I done my time." He couldn't remember the record started off. And so Tony started off, and Captain had learned these songs. And Captain started, and Carrie is doing something else. And we had played about, 5 seconds, and that's not right. It's not right. But it was Carrie messed up. He thought it was Captain. And okay, let's try it again. I did it again. Did the same thing. It was a mess for 5 seconds. Oh, whoa. Okay, Captain, you're just not ready. And so I've already got your plane ticket though, so I want you to go along, and maybe you can watch how we do it and learn from that. And because the bass is the foundation of the band, and I've got to count on that bass. And he gave me this 20-minute speech about how important bass was, and Captain knew it was Tracy messing up, not him.
Yeah.
He just sitting there, okay, or Carrie, not Tracy. And so maybe you can play tambourine or something, on some songs or something. I'll introduce you as Nick's son, because I was playing guitars or keyboard or something. And so we get to New York and doing the sound check, and Carrie said, "Go do sound check, Captain." Captain's all depressed, just not going to play. I'm going to be tambourine or sing around, And so we'd start on the sound check, and we did several songs. And Tony never comes to sound check. Mm-hmm. They just know what he wants. More 3K in the monitor there, more, And the other people in the band had never heard of Captain at all. And they said, "He's really good. He did really good, on the sound check." And so I'm like 2 minutes before we went on stage, Carrie said, "Tony, you need to use Captain. He did great. He can do it. Are you sure?" Yeah. So we do this show. There's like 15,000 people in this huge place.
Mm-hmm.
And Captain did really good. And after the show, Tony said, "Got a band meeting." And they said, "He never does it." When at Tony's shows, especially out east, there's always if the green room is this size, it'll be totally crammed with people.
Mm.
And there are really a lot of these East Coast kind of gangster guys. "Hey, Tony, how you doing?" It's like being on Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And Captain's like, "These people are real. This is really them." And it just it's really funny. They're all dressed that way, and it's funny to watch. And so Captain said, "Okay, everybody clear out." So I was going to say, I was full of shit. "Captain, you were the best player up there tonight. You kept your eye on me the whole time. You're the most professional one up there." No. It went on for about 20 minutes how you got a good kid and how wrong he was about it, everything. And so Captain kept playing with him and stayed pretty busy with Tony, and got to go lots of good places.
That's cool.
Go to Vegas and play in Vegas, and San Diego and New York. It's just gobs of places, mainly casinos,
Yeah.
And I remember maybe a year after that, I was going with him. Somebody quit or something. I was playing guitar, so we're in Vegas, and Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers,
Yeah.
he was in the crowd, and Joe Piscopo. You remember him? A Saturday Night Live guy. He did the Frank Sinatra on Saturday Night.
I think so, yeah.
But then so Tony
That
had him stand up. Okay, and I thought he stood up, and I thought I'm gonna have to explain. When we go backstage, they'll be backstage, and I'll have to explain to Captain who they are,
Yeah.
And so the show's over. We go backstage, and Piscopo's there. I'd never seen him before, and he comes up and says, "Captain, my man," He'd met him last time he was in Vegas. I didn't know that he'd already met him. Oh yeah. And they were hanging out with Bill Medley, and Bill says, we got a recording here in Vegas tomorrow. Come to the session. So me and Captain went over to watch him record a while, and but we just got to do a lot of fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
But on Tony retired though 2 years ago at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. A huge casino. It's bigger than I've ever seen in Vegas. It's an amazing place. It's kind of a cross between Bass Pro, because lots of logs and wilderness, Mohegan Sun. And for his last show. And Bill O'Reilly was there, and Priscilla Presley, and Andy Kim. Andy Kim?
No, that.
He did... rock me gently, rock me slowly, take it easy, don't you know that I am never in love. And he did, baby, I love you, baby, I love you, na 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 na. Big 70s hits.
Yeah.
He also wrote, honey,
yeah.
Sugar.
Yeah.
So he was there as a guest. He did 2 or 3 songs, and Lee Greenwood was there, and we were working up. I'm proud to be an American, or at least, and that song. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. Okay, but the actual bass notes are, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. Forget. Through the whole song, there's these weird bass inversions.
Right.
And Captain had listened to the song and learned it right. And we got done the song, and Lee kept turning around and saying, that's not a 3 chord, that's a 3 under a 6, or that's not a 6, it's a 1/7, with a major or whatever. And he kept correcting the guitar player and the other keyboard players, getting the chords right on that song. And we got done, and he said, George kept saying, "You are good. You got every note on that deal. The trickiest part in this song is the bass part, because it has lots of weird inversions." And then I said, thanks. And then a couple days after that, he called Captain and said, "Hey, you want a job in Nashville? Going on the road with me?" I said, "Sure. Tony's retired. I got nothing to do,
Yeah.
So he started going, and he said, "Learn the show." So he did the same thing, he finds it on YouTube, learns all the songs that he never heard before,
Yeah.
And the rest of his band is pissed off, because they said, "You got some 21-year-old kid playing bass with." They're all in their 50s. They've been playing with him forever, and they're all real good players. They're really good players. And I said, "All right, yeah, these kids really good." So and so would have done it, all these guys in Nashville. My buddy here, he would have done it.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure.
So Captain started playing, and they all liked him really good. So,
Yeah, that's cool.
he gets to meet lots of people, and
That's so.
And he got to play Mar-a-Lago, and he got to meet Trump yet, but you know, he's looking forward to that if he gets to.
Sure.
And
so when did you? So you played with Tony Orlando. Any other bands that people would know that you've played with or done stuff with, or?
Oh, just the Daredevils, you know.
Just the Daredevils.
I mean, that's just like, I mean, but I've been playing with them for.
When did you do anything with them? What was the first?
2006 is when I started playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I've known them forever before that, you know, because of the studio. They record here a lot over the years. And, but, you know, they hit big when I was about a sophomore in college, junior in college. And
my mom had the album, yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, you'd go through, I didn't know them then at all, but you'd walk down, besides the CU Utilities, I'm just CU Utilities, City Student Center, the campus union. And people have their speakers in their dorm window playing outdoors, and they'd be playing that record. As you walk down the hall, everybody played their same record on, you know. They weren't in sync, but it was just really weird how big they were. And of course, you know, as a player, that's why I started doing those sessions at the gospel place, and you know, I want to meet him someday. And so I gradually met him over the next, you know, few years, just each individually. And then I had the studio start in 81, so when I was here, when we got in this building. We were at another place that we recorded at. Pat Chicani's first studio was over on McDaniel. He'd started that in 74, something like that. And so they would come there and record the demos for the records and then go to LA or, you know, Nashville and record the albums. But they would work them out at that basement studio over on McDaniel's, 212 West McDaniel. And that's where I started doing my jingles. When I needed to do jingle, I would go to Pat's studio.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a 16-track studio on 1-inch tape, you know, the Washerman machine size tape recorder. And American Artists, that was the gospel studio. They were still 8-track on 1-inch tape. And from, you know, 1969. And this would have been 77. And Pat had a 4-track at first in that basement. And so he went and jumped from 4-track to 16. And back then, tracks were everything, you know. And so he was 16, and then American Arts was 8. So they said, we got to do something. So they went 24-track. And after a while, they were 24-track, MCI, and then, you know, people were torn. Do we go there or go over there, you know? So it was a competition between Pat and American Artists. So, and I was just a customer of Pat's. I would come in, I'd come watch and stuff. When the Daredevils would be there, I'd come watch, or Wayne Carson would, you know, be there, and or I'd play on Wayne's sessions there. And so I told Pat, I said, okay, why don't I buy a 24-track board and you buy a 24-track machine, and you'll be 24-track like American Artists. And then I can just come do my jingles for free. You know, I wouldn't be a customer then. And I can work at night. I can work whatever, you know, I can work around your deal.
Yeah.
So that's what we did, starting in 77. And then we thought we need to get out of the basement, because it was just a crappy old basement. We had carpet on the walls and stuff, you know. So then this building here came for sale in 81. So we bought this, he and I bought this building here together in 81, and built the control room in here and built a wall across the front. And so we started here in 81, 82 is when we got done. And we were 24-track here. And
for those who don't know, like, explain what that means, 24-track.
Means there's 24 stripes on that tape. And as you may use 8 of them for the rhythm section. Then you've got 8 more for, you know, extra guitars, violins, background singers, whatever. And when you're at 24, you're full.
Yeah.
Except you can ping those down to 2 tracks and start again. But when you do that, it costs you a little bit in quality. You know, you can't hear it. But, you know, if like Sgt. Pepper, that was like a real technologically driven album for 1967. And it was on a 4-track. But they would fill up 4 tracks, bounce it down to another machine, and then put it back on 2 tracks and have 2 tracks left.
Yeah.
You know. And so they a lot of pinging. They call it pinging. But now with the computers, you can have hundreds of tracks. But, you know.
And no degradation of the quality.
There's people that still like the sound of tape better. I don't understand that, because if they can hear the subtle differences between the tape, why can't they hear tape hiss? You know? That was always the enemy, was tape hiss, you know? Like,
there's maybe a little bit of nostalgia to it, don't you think?
I don't know what it is. I mean, it's like people that go back to record. I remember the first time I heard a CD of a record I had. Wow.
Yeah.
You hear this without the pops and the crack, you know? And now people say, oh, no, the LP
There's no
sound
cracks.
better.
It's not real.
Yeah, they don't sound, the LP sound better. Because, you know, these only go up to 15K, and you're missing that 15 to 20K of the. You can't hear that anyway. Well, I can't. So.
Yeah.
I mean, but I always say that you're talking about fidelity here, you know? And I always said that fidelity is to music what fonts are to literature. You know?
Yeah.
It's what the book says. It's not the font you use, and the same with the recording. You know, I mean, there's, to me, as technology has gotten better in recording, the music has got worse. This is by the same amount. You know, that's why I can't. I've already heard all the music I'm ever going to like. You know, there's not going to be a new song come out. And you know what the grid is? You know? See, like, lay this down. Don't do this, kids at home. It's an expensive guitar. And see, this thing will probably, this is Pro Tools. Put my super secret password in. Captain and I both use this system here. Okay, there's your tracks. Each one of these, it looks like a board. There's usually a board here, but it's in the repair shop.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck with the mouse right now. I'm getting used to it, but I don't like it. So say this is the board, and that's, you know, that's fine. You got a board here. They had boards a long time. These are just volume controls. That's volume.
Yeah.
Here's left and right. If you want the speaker coming out of here, over here. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
That's the pan, and up here you've got that's a limiter to make the volumes kind of stay the same. That's an equalizer, where there's the treble is turned up on this, you know. And there's reverb over here. There's your reverb setting. And, you know, used to be that was the main calling card of a recording studio. That's the only place you could go and hear your vocal with reverb. Whoa. You know, people didn't get to hear that. They hear their guitar through their guitar amp or whatever.
Right.
But the first, you know, Chet Atkins always said, okay, turn up the talent. They interpreted reverb as talent, you know.
Huh.
But anyway, then there's this right here. And see these little stripes? You probably can't see it on your camera there, but these little stripes here, those are the beats. And like here's the metronome. Right there's the click. It's a click track. And then, see, so you start off like this. Play.
Yeah.
Now I don't know why that's not. I'm clicking over here. See, oh, there he goes. Okay, but anyway, so now you start playing. So you got. Let's solo this. This is a song that I just was working on the past couple of days, and say it starts off. I'll put a bass drum down first. Now I'll put a snare drum on it. So here it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll stick a bass on it. Where's the bass? Then I put acoustic guitar on. Where's the acoustic guitar at? Well, there's an acoustic guitar here somewhere. I should know what it looks like. Those are all vocals. There it is. Rhythm guitar. Here's a lead guitar. Is that it? No, it's up here. Electric guitar. Anyway, this is no way to do music, okay? This is not talent. This isn't even music. This is the mechanics of music. When you want to do real music, you got to get talented people out there, and get them to play at the same time and play the song till they get it right. That's the way the good records are made. You know, I was anytime I get to meet a Nashville producer or a player or anybody, I always ask them, okay, your top 25 records of all time. Okay. How many do you think were done with a click? I say, none of them. Then why do you do everything with a click now? Everything is with a click.
Really?
Yeah. Every record recorded is with a click now. They start off with a deal, and they'll say, well, it's like if I'm playing, say, let's go back to, say that guitar there. If I hit one of those notes is out of time, right? Where did I find that acoustic guitar? It's up here. There it is. Oh, it's that bass, okay?
Yeah.
I'm playing that live. But see, like these notes right there, those notes right there, there's those little splices. That means I played them off time. So I'm showing you what it was like before I fixed them. See, I can take it kind of apart. See, that was just a hair ahead of that line?
Yeah.
So like this. Not quite in time.
Right.
So you can just go back and fix everything like that. You hit the wrong note. Say if you hit the wrong note, then you just take this note and move it over here.
Yeah. That's why there's always bands that their record doesn't sound quite like they do. You're like, man, these guys were really good on the record, but they're not quite. But then there are some bands that you're like, wow.
Oh yeah, some bands
really are on it.
Some bands you can't capture on a record. You can't capture that energy. You know, I've seen bands like that. And I don't know whether they come in the studio and they don't have a crowd or they're not drunk or what the difference is. Sometimes you can't really capture people like that.
Yeah.
But
who's some of the favorite people that you've played with? Like band or individuals? And or recorded too.
I loved playing in the Skeletons. That was a band I played with in 79 and 80.
Yeah.
Right in there for a year and a half or so. And that was Lou Whitney on bass and Donnie Thompson, who's my favorite guitar player in the world. And Lloyd Hicks on drums and me. And Lloyd and Lou have passed away.
Yeah.
But no, Donnie's my favorite guitar player in the world. And I loved playing rhythm guitar and watching him play. Or I played keyboards or organ or something in that band. And just watching him play every night, you know. And same with Lloyd. I loved playing with Lloyd. Lloyd, he sang and played drums. And, you know, it was just a really good, tight band, you know. And we never captured that in the studio either. But there's recordings of us, people with cassettes that you can hear us live that I love, you know. But we'd go to the studio and we would fall in the same pit everybody does. We would start doing stuff separately. You know, it's a 4-piece band. When we recorded, it'd be 12 pieces. Like double all the parts, double all the vocals, double all the acoustic guitars, double it, and get this anyway, so I never liked us in the studio.
Right.
Except for Donnie. Donnie was always great in the studio. And Lloyd's great. Everybody's great. It's just we didn't have a producer. You know, we were self-producing, and you know, sometimes Lou would take charge. Sometimes Lloyd would get mad, or Donnie get mad, and there wasn't anybody really directing us. And we would just, you do this anyway. It was just a weird thing.
Little mambly-pambly.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Herding cats.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
But it wasn't a direct.
But playing out, you enjoyed with them.
Huh? Playing out was great. Yeah, it was always really fun. And I really liked playing with me and Rule Chapel. We started playing together in '74. And we're still playing together in the Daredevils.
Yeah.
52 years later.
Yeah.
And we played, you were born in '74. And we first started playing at Shakey's Pizza Parlor. That's where I was playing when I met the ad guy. And we played together for a couple, 3 years there. And we played, we did real good. People liked us. People would come see us, you know.
Yeah.
And Rule got us fired a couple times. getting liquor for minors, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the Daredevils piano player quit, and so they hired Rule. About the time we got fired from our second place, they called Rule and said, "You want to go to work?" So then he went on the road with the Daredevils for a couple of years there. He played with them, and then I went on to play with other people. Played the Townhouse with Keith McCormick, and played on the Ozark Mountain Jubilee. There was a theater on North Glenstone. It's not there anymore, but it was like a Branson theater. And
I sort of remember that.
Stan Hitchcock was the MC and the lead singer. He had some hits in the '70s and stuff, so he was somebody. And he was fun to play with. And Bob Leftridge was on that show, who went on with the Ball Knobbers. And I've got to play with a lot of really fun, great people, you know. And then I played, and after that I played in a band called Sweet and Sassy at the Drury Inn, and it was like a disco band. This was during the Saturday Night Fever craze. We did like every song on that album, I think. You know, all the Bee Gees songs. And we all wore matching suits. And that was a fun band. There was mainly St. Louis guys in that band. And a local girl named Jody was the singer. And that took us up to... Then after that's when I played the Skeletons. And then I started playing. Then the Urban Cowboy craze hit. And I started playing with a country band, Gary Myers, Steve Ballou, and Mike Reed, and Jolene. And we played at a place called South Fork. Kind of sits where Red Robin is on South Glenstone, where it starts to curve like this, where there's a Walmart and stuff. There's a big club right there. And they had the first electric bull around. And that place was packed all the time.
I bet so.
81, I played there in 81, 82, around in there. From there I went to Custer's, which is where Planet Hollywood is now. Played there from 82, about 6 or 7 years there. And I'd just go from whoever quit, I'd take their place and we'd get somebody else. And I played there like 6 or 7 years, and then we had 27 band members come and go while I was there.
That's pretty good.
3 girl singers and 3 drummers I can think of. But anyway, just, you know, people quit, whatever. And then I quit playing for a couple of years, and then Rule said, we hadn't played together for 13 years or so then, and he started playing at North Glenstone at the Ramada Inn there. It's something else now, but you know, Glenstone, 8 or 9 story place. There was a club there called Gingers, and we started playing there as a duet again. Felt like we never had quit, and we just played it, and the crowds were really good. Everything's good. And then this guy showed up here, Ned the Band. You know anything about Ned? Ned is the best musician I have ever worked with. I mean, I like Donnie's guitar playing better, but anyway, you know the Palin's music is?
Yeah.
Okay. The 2 boys, Danny and I can't think of it. My brain's gone. But there's two brothers, and they're probably, one of them passed away about 5 years ago. Danny but anyway, they were probably about 20 then. And they showed up here, this was the late 80s, and they came here to record. They said, we can afford 2 days of studio time. And one of them played keyboards, one played drums. And we've got some contemporary Christian stuff. Where this one, contemporary stuff was contemporary. You know, it was kind of coming out of the drums and synth. It was when all the praise bands wanted to sound like Toto, you know. Toto invented Christian music, I think. And so they came in and they'd written like 3 songs. And they were hard songs, like Toto-ish kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were good players. They went out and played drums and keyboards. And just kind of over and over till they got 3 songs done. And Ned came in and said, Ned's going to do some stuff when we're done. So I assumed that Ned was the weak player, was holding him back. And he sat over here. I remember he had like a burr haircut and the thongs on. He looked like the guy on Full Metal Jacket, the guy goes crazy, you know, the guy that, he looked like that guy. Never said anything, was not conversational. I thought, man, this guy, because these guys were really good, you know.
Yeah.
But it still took them 3 days to get, so they'd been here a day and a half and had their 3 songs. I thought, I better be learning these songs in my head. I'm going to be playing bass and guitar, and so what do they need on, you know. I thought I was going to have to do that. So I said, okay, Ned, we're ready. Go ahead and do your thing. So Ned pulls the bass out and starts doing all this hitting, thumping, that stuff that I never had seen anybody do in real life yet. I just hear it on records. Like, how'd they doing that? Anyway, he was doing it like really good. Like, just going through first take on these 3 songs. And then he did some guitar stuff. Okay, and they said, he's going to do some brass stuff. So I'm thinking, I'm going to play it on keyboard, you know. He goes out of the car, brings in a trumpet, and a trombone, and a saxophone. And he just rips up all the parts, just like first take.
Yeah.
And about 6 months before that, I'd got a phone call. You get nut phone calls on it. When you're in the phone book as a recording studio, you get nut phone calls every day. Can you take the voice out of a record? No. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. No, you can't do that. You can't do it. Oh, you can't. Anyway, just, or you know, my son plays guitar and sings. What should I do? You know, they think I'm a record company. I hit the red button. That's all I do, you know. And so, got this call. You ever need studio musicians? Yeah. Some, you know, that's what, need a steel player or, you know, sax player. I said, what do you play? He said, oh, I play like piccolo, flute, clarinet, French horn, trumpet, trombones, all the saxophones, piano, bass, drums, you know, string bass, electric bass. Well, okay, I got your number here. Okay, thanks a lot. I'll give you a call. You know, I thought he was just a nut, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, but he came in, I said, who are you? You know, it's like it was Western, you know. Who are you? And he said, well, I called you like 6 months ago. You never have called me. I said, that was you? I said, what are you doing tonight? Nothing. I said, I play with this guy named Rule out at the Gingers. You want to go play with us? He said, sure. What do you want me to play? And so I had that tuba out here. I said, can you play tuba? Sure. So I took my tuba out there.
Yeah.
And he just starts playing with it. Boom, 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 boom. And Rule said, who is this guy? He's just, you know.
That's hilarious.
And then there was a, you know, dream.
Sure.
Okay, and the bridge goes, na 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 na, take your lips in mine, anytime, night or day. Only trouble is, gee whiz. Okay, on the gee whiz, he would take the tuba out and go, gee whiz. He had the third part.
Yeah.
And I dream in my, anyway, so, well, you can't sing and play tuba, so okay, I'll start playing bass. So he started playing upright bass. And so that's how Nick and Rule the band. And then he played for 6 months, and people started getting word about how this guy could play whatever you want, you know.
Uh-huh.
And somebody tried to hire him away from us. Said, okay, then we'll see if we start getting you paid. He was paid for free for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we played together for 25 years, you know, the three of us, Nick and Rule had the band at the pizza places. And he was just an amazing player. I mean, he'd play trumpet or saxophone almost, you know.
Yep.
And back, so we started playing together. It's getting long, I know.
No, you're fine.
Run out of battery.
Yeah, no, that part's fine.
Yeah, play this at my funeral. But we had this guy come in here, and he was a composer, as he said he was. He was a composer, and he'd written this chart out that called like for, 3 trumpets, 2 French horns, and I think he was attempting to do news music. I mean, it wasn't gonna be for it was just a piece he'd written, you know. It's about 3 minutes long or something like that. I mean, serious sounding, classical kind of stuff, you know. And he said, can we get some players to play these things? And I said, well, there's this guy, he could do the whole thing for you. No, I said, I know Bill Hartman over at SMS, he teaches trombone, he said he'd do it. But Jim Ellswick, he's the trumpet teacher at MSU. Verl Ormsby, he's a French horn he's the Springfield Symphony French horn player, and he teaches at Bolivar.
Yeah.
I've talked to all these guys, but I don't know about the double and the parts and stuff. And I said, well, if you got your, 8 guys, and they're gonna play it to a click. No, it was just all brass, and they were all lined up out there, and Ned was going to join him, and they were saying, "Who's this guy they're calling Ned the band? I hear he's going to be playing with us." Yeah, I haven't heard him yet, but I keep hearing about him, and of course Ned shows up. All these instruments are, all they were playing, the saxophone, the trumpet, trombone, and so what do we play first? So okay, play second trumpet behind Jim Ellswick. So they counted off. And it's horrible. One thing, it's horribly written. I mean, it didn't make it jumped time. It wasn't anything you could sing. It was just something you'd practice on for a long time and maybe get it going. And it was just horrible. It was not coming together at all. And Ned was there. He says, I got to teach a lesson in like 30 minutes. I got to go. Can I just do my parts? Okay. So Ned just takes each one of the parts, rips it off the first time. Go to saxophone, do the trombones. Gets it all done. All these professors are watching him. You're like, sounds pretty good. So they didn't have to play anything. Yeah, he was an amazing player.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But anyway, that's Ned. That's kind of. Oh, then there was a girl named Abby Waterworth that was. She still is a really good singer, and she won Name That Tune at McSalty's one night. And it was an odd song that I thought, and she was a senior in high school, and she won. She was there with her mom, dad, and her brother, and she. So I went back there and I said, "How would somebody your age know that song?" And she said, "Because I'm good." What do you mean you're good? And her dad said, "Well, she plays and sings music." Oh, okay. So you want to do a song? So she did a song, and I just thought she had a really unusual voice. And I'm always looking for singers, And I go to Branson. I hear a really good singer. They'd be great for a commercial. So I'll hire them to come up here, and they're really good at that one song they've been singing for 6 months. but teaching them a 30-second jingle, it's like they sing with no feeling, or they can't sing it in tune, or you find out then they can't say L's, or they don't say F's. There's letters missing and that you need.
Yeah.
And you don't hear that live and here in studio.
Huh.
So I'm always really doubtful when you're a good singer anywhere. And so I'd written this song, and I said, have written a song that I think you'd sound good on. I said, okay, you know. So I emailed it to her. So she called back a couple weeks later, and said, I think I'm ready to sing her song. Okay. So her parents came in, and she sang, and she was amazing. I mean, just amazingly good.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a bunch of songs that and so then I had her, Rule and I were playing together, and Ned had quit and gone to Florida. So then it was back to me and Rule.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, she played guitar and banjo, and it was kind of just a folky gal, you know, but it had this really weird voice. And I said, well, do you think you can learn to play bass? She said, I can do anything. She was a weird girl. And so I said, okay, take that bass home and see if you can learn how to play it.
Yeah.
And call me whenever you think you've got it down. So she called me a couple weeks later and said, I think I'm ready to try it. And okay, so she came out and started playing with us. And since I play guitar, she could watch the chord I was playing and know playing C. And there's a G. And it took her, you know, a little while to get real good, but she got really good. And so it was Nick and Rule and Abby for a couple of years. And that was one of the most fun bands I ever played in, because we really worked up parts and did unusual songs.
Well, yeah, with her.
Yeah, because it opened a whole new thing with having a girl singer.
Yeah.
And we could just do her stuff, and she sounded really good on it. But anyway, and then started playing with the Daredevils more and more, and with Tony Orlando a lot during that same time period. And then Daredevils started creeping in more. And so that's kind of everything. But in the meantime, I'm taking care of stupid tenants. 9 out of 10 of them are fine, but 10% of those tenants will waste your whole life.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
the
tricky.
problem.
I've got some investor friends that, you know, they try to avoid those as much as possible.
Oh, you try to, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, the two of the worst tenants I've ever had was a husband and wife doctor team. They're both doctors.
Yeah.
I thought it'll be great. And I had a house in Southern Hills, and they lived there for about a year, and they just like destroyed it.
Yeah. I've heard stories like that before.
You can't tell.
Yeah.
You know, and just...
You wouldn't think it would be the case. But...
No. And other people, you're doubtful. You're worried about, they'll be the best ones. So I just kind of leave it up to Providence now. Just like, unless it's just obvious. Well, one thing I learned is if you're... Okay, I was one person I talked to, and one thing, if they call you sir a lot, that means they've been in prison. You know? And I remember one gal I read it to, or guy, I can't remember, but had a Bible in the back seat. This lady in the back seat. I thought, they'll be great. They were horrible. So you look for little signs, and you know.
Some of those signs aren't really not good indicators.
No. And you know, there's these ads on TV. I've never told you this. I'm on camera, I can tell you.
Yeah.
But ads on TV, you know, has your landlord tried to exploit you sexually for rent or something? Use those ads, those public service ads, you know?
No,
you ever seen
I don't
those?
think I've seen
Oh, they've been like, yeah, you report, you know, this stuff. So. But like as a landlord, I've had to be the opposite, you know.
Yeah.
How much is rent on this place? It's $600. And then a girl would have sat there in a car seat, pull up her dress, say, "Can we work out something?" You know. I said, "Okay, now, who do I call when that happens? Is there a state agency that's protecting landlords?"
Landlord protection agency.
No, they don't care about that.
Yeah. I think I may have been sexually harassed.
Yeah, but the government's always going to follow the money.
Yeah.
They're going to go with that person because they don't have any money. But if you're a landlord, he must be rich. We'll go after that guy.
Yeah, that's true. That's
the way
true.
it works.
It is. It is. Well, hey, I've enjoyed this.
That's
You know,
right.
one question I might have for you is anybody else you would recommend? Because I'm always looking for more people to interview and that maybe have good stories. Because the focus is always focus on you know, the great people, the great businesses, and the great things to do here in the Ozarks. And so if you either have any right now off the top of your head or you think of any, definitely reach out and let me know.
I would say Lou Whitney, but he died.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, they have to be alive.
You're right.
I mean,
Can have a seance.
it would be a short podcast if I went
Yeah.
graveside. And,
I'll think about it. You know, there's a lot of colorful people in the business of it. You know, but yeah, it's a weird business.
yeah, that's okay.
But my son's not old enough to have a lot of history yet. But he's going into real estate too. He sees he's playing with Nashville guys, you know, who are middle aged, who like they don't have anything, you know.
Right.
And they got a job, but that's about as good as it gets in the music business, you know. And even if there's people I know who have had some stardom, not about the Daredevils, but I mean like other people that have some success for 2 years, and the rest of their life they're trying to get that success again. They never get it, and they end up just like, I should have got a regular job, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see that. I mean,
and that's what I've got a regular job, you know.
Well, I think you were smart about that.
I've got stuff, you know. I've got stuff, but you know, I know, and I always think, you know, I know. It's a lot of materialism and stuff. You're as a guy, that's what you're kind of doing, you know. But I know some people who've had hit records, you know. And I think I always call myself a failed songwriter because I've never had a hit. I've written thousands of jingles, you know. But this is what I classify myself. I'm a failed songwriter, and I write songs all the time, and some are good, some aren't, you know. But I just feel totally irrelevant because I'll say you get a top 100 Billboard songs, you know. One thing, I won't know AM because you don't hear songs. You know, it used to be you had a number one song, you heard it everywhere you went. You heard it, you know. True. Now you can have a number one song out, you can Saturday Night Live, and you'll never hear that song again. If I ever hear a song twice, I know it must be huge, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but
it is a little different.
Yeah,
definitely a lot different, actually.
Well, I relate it to. Do you know who the heavyweight champion of the world is now?
Boxing, you mean? No.
Nobody does. But used to, everybody knew who the.
Yeah, they don't do a great job of marketing.
Well, but there's Mike Tyson was the last, but used to, and there's Muhammad Ali, or George Foreman, who it was, and that's just something that's gone now. And I see music as the same way. Nobody knows what the number one song is. They can't name me a top 10 song for the past 20 years. They might know "I'm So Happy," or they might know Uptown Funk. You know.
Yeah.
There's about 2 or 3 songs in the past 20 years I can even tell you.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there has been a pretty big shift musically, but all your streaming services though they will have a top 50, top 100. It's not quite the same as the radio.
No,
but
it's all segmented up. You can go find a song that you like, and they'll play 100 songs in a row that sound just like it. You know?
That are similar. It will direct you that way.
Yeah, and it's whereas, say 1965, you look at a chart from then, it'll have Help by the Beatles, it'll have Dang Me by Roger Miller, country thing, it'll have Strangers in the Night, which sound like old people music.
They're all a little different.
Yeah, and they're all from different parts of the world, different parts of the country. That's one thing that Cy Simon, Cy Simon was.
Not the name.
That's a whole other conversation. But Cy Simon was the head of the Ozark Jubilee. He was the producer of the Ozark Jubilee when it was in town. You know what that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
He was and when it got shut down, he stayed in Springfield and became a publisher. And he published Wayne Carson songs and Ronnie Self songs and Woody P. Snow had, you know Woody P. Snow?
Sure.
He had one hit, you know. Do you know he had a hit song?
Yeah,
Rocky's love song. Rocky, I've never had a baby before. Don't know if I can do it. I don't know. And it was #1 song in 75, 76. It was the first song he ever wrote.
Huh.
And he took it to Cy, and Cy said, that's a hit song. Cy didn't know anything about music. He couldn't tell you where middle C was. But he could listen to a song and tell you whether it was a hit or not.
Huh.
And that was his skill. And Woody was a DJ and took him this song.
Yeah.
He said, that's a hit song. Let me be the publisher on it. And it was.
Huh.
And Woody's been trying to write that second hit for 45 years now, 50 years.
Yeah.
And so we send each other songs all the time. He and I do still. And but Cy was the publisher here in town. And that's the guy that I blame Cy for all of Branson, okay? Because if it wasn't for Cy and the Jubilee, like the Foggy River Boys, they were the background. That was a show in Branson for a long time.
Right.
They were the background singers on the Jubilee. So the Jubilee shut down. They said, let's start a theater in Branson. And some of like the Presleys or the Ball those were people that were trying to get on the Jubilee that never really got there, never got on. So they go to Branson and start theaters. And Cy was and when he died, I think he died in 94. That was the end of Springfield's connection to the real music business.
Yeah.
Because Cy, you could take a song to Cy. It was like Wayne Carson, he died too in 2018, I think. Something, and do you know who Wayne Carson is? He was a local songwriter. And when he was 21, he wrote, "Give me a ticket for an airplane."
Yeah.
And he wrote, "You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind.
Yeah.
You were always." And so Wayne would write songs and take them in to see Cy, and Cy'd say, "Okay, I think this is good. Demo this one.
Yeah.
So they'd come down here, and the old basement mainly. And Wayne was only here a couple times before he just totally was in Nashville in the early 80s. We've been here since 81. But he was here a few times. But we did gobs of songs where I'd be playing guitar, that same ones. Mike Bride, Dave Pease, the same rhythm section did all this gospel stuff. They were friends with Wayne, and Wayne would come to the studio and say, well, I got, 4 or 5 songs to do here. And he'd teach them to us, hear the voice of you, glad, through the mountains. It'd be the songs, and then we'd do the demos on it. Cy would send them to Elvis or Merle Haggard or Willie Nelson, whoever else, and 3 months later, they'd all be on the charts. We'd hear them on the radio.
Huh.
And so Springfield had a connection with the real music business,
Yeah.
And when Cy died, world's sitting around there. What do we take songs now? There's nobody. And the whole business has changed.
Yeah.
Now they got every song. If you look at a chart, there's 6 or 8 people that wrote every song on there.
Yeah.
There are these committees of songwriting that,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, no question, it's shifted quite a bit.
Yeah.
But by the same token, there's also a lot of opportunities for anybody who is a talented musician. I mean, social media, you can blow up.
Well, that's what they say. I hear people, Harry Styles and people like that. It was just
the
started
girl
off
from Willard too.
Chapel Roan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember when she was playing at Arts Fest down here.
Yeah.
On Walnut Street.
So there's opportunities that there weren't previously.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think that's where, but not all musicians are multi-talented like that to be able to produce their music or even record their music and then put it on social media. They're probably not.
Right.
It's an uncommon.
Well, it's just like anything else. Yeah, just success, anything. It's just desire,
Yeah.
It's like Abby Waterworth. She could have been a star, but she didn't have any desire to be a star.
Right.
She's working somewhere in town now, married, and
yep.
I hear she plays there once in a while, but she could have been somebody. And
well, it's kind of, Jack White's girlfriend, that played the drums for years. She after I think they played for so many years, and then she just wanted to go back to living a normal life. She didn't want to be a musician.
Yeah.
Because they played for a while. She a very unorthodox drum player, but it worked well for them when they did play. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
But you got people like that she never really wanted to be in the limelight or, again.
But yeah, I always, have you ever seen this? There's this, you know who Milton Friedman is?
I've heard the name.
He's an economist. He won the Nobel Prize for economics like maybe 1980, something like that. He was a Chicago professor. And he had a TV show called Free to Choose. He had a book, Free to Choose. But there's this famous thing about the pencil that you can see it on YouTube. And Norman explains the pencil. And he says, takes a pencil. He says, talk about the market. As far as the pencil, they're everywhere, ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're cheap. People think anything about them, but there's not one person on earth that knows how to make one. It takes somebody to mine the graphite, somebody to cut the tree down, make the bill, somebody to make the paint, make the little copper. He displays it all out.
Yeah.
He said that's the magic of the market. And see, that's the way I relate that whole thing to music. To me, music was best when there was division of labor. When you had people like Frank Sinatra or Ray Charles, Joe Cocker, who sang, but didn't ever write songs. Then you had writers who couldn't sing, like, Bacharach, Hal David, whoever. And then you had engineers like Jeff Emmerich, the Beatles engineer, or arrangers, Nelson Riddle, who never wrote songs or sang songs. Then you had A&R guys, that's artist repertoire, and they would pick a song and say, I think this song would be great for Leslie Gore. This song would be great for, James Brown, whatever. They would put songs and the artists together and put it together. You had producers. And now you've got 22-year-old guys doing every one of those jobs. Yeah. And they wonder
and even beyond that, you've got AI artists now.
Oh yeah.
Which are mixed in there, and I've got people that I know that didn't realize they were an AI voice, and then realize, oh, that's an AI artist.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends who everybody's amateur songwriter around here. They wouldn't be, but who just like, I've written some words, and that's all I've got, and I can even somebody write music for my words. Remember, I write music, and now they're sending me finished stuff that sounds like come to Nashville. It sounds like great songs, and they just send them in a few words, and and it comes back sounded produced. But
interesting.
Right. Thanks for listening to Living in the Ozarks. If you know somebody with a great story, somebody we need to sit down with, send them our way at livingintheozarks.com. We'd love to meet with them.